A very good evening to everybody present here. Welcome to day 6 of Sensei. Today we will be learning about Alexa skills and fact skills. So API skills, sorry. So before we begin, we would like to thank Seaport.ai for their constant support. They are our sponsor. And before I begin, I would also like you all to put down any queries that you have in the chat box. We will be addressing them throughout the session. Thank you very much. All right. So, good evening. My name is Nia Shamir. Again, welcome to Sensei Day 6. So, today we will be covering Alexa skills and how to deploy our own skill, first code it and then deploy it. We will also look at how Alexa skills actually work so that y'all get an actual idea of how to go about it. All right. So, this is just a meme, but to be frank, it's something that we all know. Alexa keeps listening to the conversations that we have. So, but we also know that there's a wake word called Alexa. So it's only after that that Alexa actually listens to what we have to say. However, it's something that we can always work on, and that's something that all of us developers look at, and we try to improve on that. All right. Before we begin, I would like to bring out one clear example between an Alexa and an Echo device. So we need to remember throughout the session that Alexa is just the brain behind the entire happening, whereas the Echo is the body of what's happening. All right. So that's the major difference between an Alexa and an Echo device. And Alexas are also deployed in many other devices as well, right? All right. So introduction. Today, now, what are skills? So we're dealing with Alexa skills. So what are skills? So we know that each Android or iOS or whatever, they have apps, right? Phones have apps. So skills are similar to apps, but for Alexa. So each skill has its own, they have its own capabilities. So you deploy these capabilities to do certain things using Alexa. So skills is just another name for apps. Hope that's clear. Moving on. Alexa, skip to the weekend. This is something that we all want Alexa to do, but we know that this isn't quite possible. Anyways, so why do we use Alexa? We know that one major factor about Alexa is its availability. So to take an example, Alexa can even be it can be used even in a microwave. So its availability is excellent. And that's one of the major reasons why we use Alexa. All right. So how does it work? How does the whole how does the whole idea of a skill work? Now, to understand that, I would like to bring up something known as an interaction model. So if you listen closely to this, it's nothing big. It's simply whatever you say, all right? That will be an interaction model. So whatever a user says will be split into parts, into words and phrases that the skill can understand. So it's very similar to a graphical user interface in a traditional app, so that it's not extremely coded, it's extremely simple stuff that the user says, which is split, all right? So to take an example of this, we have Alexa, get high tide for Seattle from tide pooler. Okay, so to put it in simple terms, over here, Alexa, as we all know, is the wake word. So once the user says Alexa, Alexa will actually start to listen what we have to say after we say Alexa, right? All right. So before that, over here, tide pooler, apologies. Yeah, tide pooler is the invocation name. So first what Alexa does is it will go into something known as tide pooler, all right? So everything inside tide pooler will have commands similar to get high tide for Seattle. So high tide for Seattle will be inside tide pooler, all right? And that is the tide pooler is thus the invocation name, if you get what I mean. So intent is basically the intent behind saying something. So you say something, what's the intent behind it? You need to know the time. That's your intent. And all right, over here, I've also mentioned utterances. So utterances are basically, again, words and phrases that you say. So for example, when you code, you can give these utterances. Get time. Alexa, what is the time? So what is the time is the utterance. Or you can have another way to phrase it. You can also say, give me the time. So that's another utterance. All right. So these are stuff that Alexa recognizes. And that's, if you give it, then Alexa will recognize it. All right. So those are utterances, and intents is simply the intent behind doing something. Okay, so I'm very well aware that y'all had sessions before this and that you all know what AWS Lambda is. So if anybody wants to voluntarily just come up and say what AWS Lambda is. Okay. All right. So I'll explain it to you. I'm sure y'all know what it is, so I'll just put it in simple terms. It's basically a serverless computing service. So everything, it's a cloud-based service, and everything happens without, it's serverless. And you can do pretty much anything on AWS Lambda. All right. So we will be dealing with that. We will be using this as well. All right. So how does it actually, what happens on the inside, right? So so first, this is the user. So the user makes a request, which is basically the user saying something. Alexa, give me the time. All right, that's the request. So now the user, whatever request that a user sends will be passed to the cloud, right? So whatever happens in the cloud is what is the complicated stuff, basically. All right, it's not very complicated. First of all, what happens is the voice message, the speech, gets converted to text. All right. And again, so Alexa, you know that it's divided into intents and utterances and the invocation name. So it finds out where it is, and then it brings out the information, and then that's in text, right? So then that text gets converted to voice again, and it gets processed, and then the user hears what Alexa says. It's basically just that. So I hope you all understood the whole concept of this. If you haven't, you can, again, if I'm too fast, you can leave a message in the chat box. All right. So now we will get to the most interesting part of this whole event, and which is coding our own skill and deploying it. Now, before we code, though, we have a few things that we have to keep in mind. So we will be using Alexa Developer Console, all right? But you can also use blueprints and VS Code, our very own VS Code. But so the whole concept of blueprints is that it's like a drag and drop stuff. So it's very simple. You do not have coding and all of that. Whereas Alexa Developer Console and VS Code involves a little bit of coding. Again, it's not complicated. You can use templates, and it's very simple. All right, so there's obviously limits for using the developer console, but it's extremely large, the limit. So again, Lambda has a 1 million limit, which is amazing. And after that, you will have to pay 0.20 per million. That's dollars. So again, all of these have their own limits, but more than enough, to be frank, yeah. All right. Okay, so we'll get to the coding part right now. You can see my screen, right? Okay, so before we begin, what you need to note is that we will be coding an API skill, all right? So for that, you will need to go to something called as Dabble Lab, all right? Dabble Lab. Now, you will click on Dabble Lab. So I'm logged in already, so you will have to log in, all right? Make your own account, simple stuff. Is this? And then click on Alexa templates. You will have inbuilt templates that you can use. Now over here, you will click on Remote API Example, and you will click on Deploy now. All right. So once you click on Start, it might take a little while. Meanwhile, if anybody has any doubts, you can always put it down in the chat box right now. We will address it. Any doubts related to any of the concepts that was introduced? So this is the developer console. So once we deploy this over here, it gets, considering I logged in you would have seen that I logged into the developer console as well. So it gets linked to this and then it appears over here and then we can use it. Is there any doubt though, anybody? You can feel free to ask. All right. Again, I'll reiterate on the fact that these are templates. So your life becomes extremely simple because you only have to, if you want a different output, then you will have to just change a little bit of what Alexa says. Basically, it's just all variables and all of that, which you can always change. So the major part of it remains the same. All right. Okay, so now this should appear here. Just reload it. Yeah, you see this? So that's the all right. So first you click on interaction model. Okay. So over here you can give the name. So over here it's a fact skill. So fact skill can be a facts, but it has to be two, all right? So you need two different names, like a first name and a last name. All right, so that's done. Now save model. We'll code, all right? If you want, you can, so these are the intents that I was talking about. So it'll go into these and then it will take out whatever's inside. All right, so then we will code. So this is the template. So we deployed something from Dabble Lab. So when you open the code, this is what it'll look like. This is not something that we've done on the outside. This is something that everybody can use. So moving on, I'll explain how what each thing stands for. All right. So now over here we have get remote data handler. This is nothing. Simply, it's just something that handles requests. All right. So launch requests and intent requests and all of that. So it's just something to handle these kinds of requests. So the important part over here is this function, all right? So over here, output speech is nothing. It's just a variable. So this variable stores this message. Initially, this is what it stores. Like any other variable, like a, which stores 8 or whatever. So it's just like that. Now we come to await get remote data, and this is the URL. This is the URL of the JSON file, which contains the information. So over here, if I open this, I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you the JSON file, all right? So this is the JSON file. So this is what that file contains, and this is what the skill will say, all right? This is what it'll, you can see it's just an array. Message stores success and people has craft, all of that, okay? All right. So now, so get remote data is again, so I will get remote data, which is at the bottom over here. Okay, so get remote data, and this is the URL that we passed. So this is a promise function. So what it basically does is, so it will either complete it or it will reject whatever's being done, and it will provide that value to the user. For example, it can only provide 3 values, which is so the 3 values are either fulfilled, rejected, or pending. So if something's pending, it will show that the request is still pending, or if it's fulfilled, it will show fulfilled, and if it gets rejected, then it will just say show failed. All right. So basically, we know that when it comes to asynchronous functions or synchronous functions, something needs to finish before before some result is showed to the user, right? So for promise functions, it will just store that value, and then as and when required, it will show whether a request is resolved or rejected. And that's what it does. So over here now, client stores, yeah, so this is basically checking if the URL starts with HTTPS or HTTP, and that's what client does. Now again, so request client.get URL response over here. Okay, so we know that for the response to be successful, for it has to be between 200 and 299. So if it's between that, then it means that it's successful. So what this if function does, it checks if it's less than 200 or greater than 299, which basically means that it's an error. So that's why it rejects with this failed with status code. And that's what this stands for. All right. So now moving on, this data that we've passed through the URL will be passed as a chunk. Chunk is basically just like a chunk of code. That's what it stands for. Again, it's not like a data. It's nothing very important. It's just like a variable name. Now, then it'll push it into the body, and that's what the chunk is pushed into the body. All right. And over here, this basically stands for the fact that you see this, right? So it's just an empty quotation mark, not quotation, single quotes. So this is space, this blank space. So it will just join a blank space at the end of the chunk, all right? It will just at the end of the body. So that's just what this does. All right, and this, as everybody, I think all of you all know, it's just if there's an error, then it rejects with an error. Okay, so this is what this, so when it encounters this, it'll go to this. And then it'll come back here. It has that response, right? So now that response over here will be passed as a JSON file. Okay, because it wasn't a JSON. So now this output speech that we encountered earlier, which was a variable, this gets updated to there are currently, okay, so over here you'll see that these are names of people. These are names of people in space. That's what it actually is. So output speech is there are currently data.people.length. So data.people, right? People has so many. So it'll return the length of this, which will be 7, I think. Yeah, 7. Okay. So it'll return that. There are currently 7 astronauts in space. That's what output speech will get updated to. And then for let I is equal to this dot data.people.length, which is 7. So now over here, the first record will be output speech will be there are currently 7 astronauts in space. That's what output speech is. Then their names are, and then the first one over here. So I is equal to 0. So the first one. So the first one will be Sergei Rizikov or whatever that is. All right. So that's what it'll be. Else if. So now it's checking if it's the last record. If it's the last record, it has to say something particular, right? Add and so that it ends with that. And if it's the middle record, it'll just say output speech plus the name. It's nothing big. That's just a simple for function. I mean for loop. And okay, so the main part of this is that it has 2 parts. So if there's no error, if there's an error, it'll come to the cache. And this cache will basically just return the error message. I hope this is clear. I hope I'm not too fast. All right. So again, so then in the end, it will speak the output speech. So the output speech gets updated over here, right? So this is what it'll speak. This is what Alexa will speak. And then over here, what get response does is that it listens to anything else that the user might say after, Alexa says something. So it's just constantly listening. That's what get response does. These are all handler functions that you don't really, you don't really have to know about them because it's not, all you have to change, you might have to change stuff over here. That's all that's important right now. Now, so we will deploy this. Okay. Now, so we can test it. When you test it, firstly, you'll have to change this to development, all right? Okay, now I will say facts, fact, skills.
Okay, here's fact.
Okay, I don't think if you can.
Here's your
Okay,
fact.
sorry.
Ria, a cute, hyperactive, and athletic girl.
All right. Okay, hold on. I think I didn't add the utterances. Okay, I didn't add this, I think, yeah. All right. It's here. Okay. Okay, it's fact skill. That's why. All right. Some fact skills. Okay, so be sure that you type in the correct thing or you say the correct thing. That's why you have a list of utterances and all of that. Fact skill. Oh, okay.
Okay, here's fact. Here's your fact. Praveen, obsessed with time. Time. Here's your fact. Time. Praveen, obsessed with time. Time.
Just give me a minute, all right? Did I not save this? Okay. Maybe I'll change this to astronauts space. Just give me a minute. Okay, so basically, it was just getting confused between a lot of skills that already exist. So over here, I've changed it to space people. All right, so it should work now. Save model. All right, test. Space people.
This might answer your question. Space, official, is a YouTuber with 3,900,000 subscribers. Since creating their
Okay. Change the invocation name again to. Okay. Deploy this again. All right. Okay. So
There are
it's
currently 7 astronauts in space. Their names are Sergei Ryabkov,
you can hear
Kate
that, right?
Rubins, Sergei Kudzverchkov, Mike
So
Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi.
so I can hear what Alexa is saying. Hopefully you can as well. Either way, so the problem with that was it was getting confused between a lot of existing skills. So I gave astronaut space, so that might have been something different. So make sure you keep it something similar, but something that's relevant, but also something that's not very common, so that it does not get confused. All right. So that's done. Now we'll go to certification. All right. So certification is basically so that once you certify your skill, you can it will be available, right? So they will go through your code and see if it's something new, if it's not something that's already existing, or if it's not something that you've not plagiarized it from somewhere else. So that's the whole process of certification. You will have to give like a logo and all of that, which I will not be showing you today. But you can add your own logo, you can add your name, you can give a description and all of that. I'll show you the whole how it looks and how to go about it, but I will not be adding the logo. It's a very simple process, so you can just go through it. So right now it's checking for errors and all of that. And it will also show if there are any errors. Are there any doubts regarding anything? Considering I showed you on live like the mistake that I made and how to solve it, I think you won't make that mistake again. Either way, is there any other doubt? All right. We're almost done with it. It's quite simple. The thing is, we won't know if you've understood unless you ask doubts, because it's a concept like these concepts. If you understand the concepts, it's fairly simple. And considering you've already dealt with JavaScript and you've already dealt with Node and you've already dealt with all of that, AWS Lambda, and this should be fairly simple. If you have any doubts related to that as well, you can always go to our Discord server and put in your doubts over there. We'll always be available and we'll address it. All right. That's all right. This is something that you can work on. All right. I think we didn't add. Okay. The example that we added did not have the wake word and invocation name, but that's all right. Now submission. Okay. All right. Where is it? Okay, so here, this is what's the important part over here. So I will give the name as astronauts space skills. On sample short description, it can be anything. So over here, people in space. And this can be a like, so basically it's like if you look for a product on Amazon, you will have a one line, first you'll have a one line explanation of it. So it'll say, for example, you're buying a lamp, so it'll say study lamp. So that is the one sentence description. Study lamp, which contains a lot of LEDs or whatever. And then the detailed description will be, so it uses so much voltage and, all of that. So that's what this stands for again. What's new in this? It simply says who's in space at the moment. Okay. Now examples. This is what the error that they showed over there. So here, look over here. So this does not contain the wake word that we had earlier. I mean, sorry, the invocation name that we had earlier, which was astronaut space. So Alexa, tell me names of astronauts. Astronaut space. Okay, you can again add whatever. Alexa, astronauts space names. All of that. This is just an example. I think this will be enough. So this is what I was talking about, skill icon. So you can add all of that over here. Haven't obviously added it over here right now. Now, all right, so save and continue. No, no. All right, so no, no. So that's all. Save and continue. So it's available for the public. So I think, hope all of you all know what a beta test is. I pretty sure that you all do. So now, in all countries and regions where Amazon is. Okay, so now we'll have to run it again. So that error won't show up again because we just corrected it. In distribution, under distribution, right? So you go through all of these. So that should be fine. Are there any doubts? Again? All right, I hope you all understood. Now, we could wait for this to validate. But before that, again, I would like to ask all of you all to put in any of your queries on Discord, or if you just want to hang out with a few of us who work on codes and stuff, then you can come on Discord as well. If you want to learn something new, you can ask us and maybe we can learn it together. So our Discord community is very chill, and we definitely hope to see y'all in the upcoming events that we host. And well, I think that's about it. But before that, we would also like to thank CPO.ai again for their kind help. And thank you all for joining in all day, 6 days of the event. Hope you all understood something. If you haven't, you can again look at the videos that we've uploaded on YouTube, or you can address it to us on Discord. Thank you very much.
बढ़िया था, मैं थोड़ा सा ही देखा एंड का।
I that even space people did not know.
ए तू साग्निक नहीं है, मैं साग्निक हूँ, निकल यहाँ से।
तो इधर मेरे को लगा कि मैं ज्वाइन कर वापस मैसेज है, उसके बाद रियलाइज किया कि तेरे पास है अकाउंट।
भैया रिकॉर्डिंग तो नहीं।
ओ सॉरी।
Oh.